All right, everybody. Today we're talking about Energy Star Roughs, specifically Energy Star 3.2. I'm here with Brent. He and I have been walking some houses in Tamarron. This goes for anything that has foam. If it has foam, they really want that foam to qualify them for Energy Star 3.2, which is new. There's more rebate on the table. They would be doing the foam if they didn't want that extra rebate. And with that comes a lot of requirements. Now, it's a nasty rumor that the people who do foam make our job easier because it's foam. How can they possibly get anything foam wrong? But what we got to hold them to is a standard that is communicated between D.R. Horton and Strand and in this case, Williams Insulation to meet the R value requirements that they're paying for. So if they don't meet it, it may not even be qualified for Energy Star 3.2, and that's a lot of money. So they want that rebate. We need to check it. This is an example of an installation certificate. If they don't have an installation certificate, it's an automatic fail. If the installation certificate is incorrect, it's an automatic fail too. And I'm going to show you a couple things I don't like about this one. At the top, it talks about the different types of foam. So here it should be checked as Seal-Tight Pro OCX. Instead they checked Seal-Tight Pro High Yield. Now the truck was outside, we went inside and saw that they actually don't even have any high yield. They only have OCX product. So why did they put this? We don't know, but it's going to fail. The OCX product needs to be reflected on the certificate. That's the product they're using. Now OCX is actually the only product on this list, or really on any list you'll ever see, that has ignition barrier built in. It's actually just hard to ignite. So this foam that they're using over here is a sucrose or sugar-based foam that is not going to ignite as soon as you get a spark on it. A lot of foams will, OCX won't. Now that doesn't so much matter on the wall. You're gonna have an ignition, a spark barrier anyway when you put up the sheetrock. It doesn't so much matter on the slope ceiling because you're going to have a spark barrier for the slope ceiling being the sheetrock. But up here, it's actually a code violation to have something that's going to ignite to a spark. And so that's why they're using OCX product, because they don't want to have to spray something additionally, like painted on top of the foam
on the vertical walls.
On the
Slope.
The vertical walls. The vertical walls of the attic. They don't want to have to paint something on top of that for an ignition barrier. They make a product for that if they're not using OCX, but that's an extra chore that they have to get right. They don't have to get right when they're using OCX. So the certificate's not right. Additionally, the attic area says they're doing R26. It says it should be 7 inches deep. Your report, Brent's updating our Energy Star Rough reports for 3.2, and you're going to have to select 3.2 when it's a foam house. So make sure you're not doing one that doesn't have this additional information when you're doing a foam house. So there could be something mixed up in the system, and it's up to you as the inspector to, I'm going to reload the report to reload the correct one that's 3.2 if you're not given an option. I think you'll be given an option. So these foam houses are going to have a area where you write what the depth is, because as you can see, the R values corresponds to inches of depth. So let's just go through this. Brent, you want to hold this real quick? So we've got this tool. It extends. I'm going to give each of you one of these tools. It extends to a nice length, so you're not climbing up on a ladder to get all these locations. And what you can do is measure it with this tool. So right here, they're allowed to have R21 because they can't go any deeper on the slope ceiling. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the panel as a whole, and I'm going to pick a middle ground of depth to measure, which means I'm not going to stab it right here. That looks like the lowest point. I'm not going to stab it there, and I'm not going to stab it here at the highest point. I'm going to pick a middle ground looking at the panel as a whole, and I would say probably right here is a nice middle ground. So as I stab it up there, I'm getting 7 inches, actually 6 3/4. That's more than R21, so that's okay.
3.7 R value per inch is what Carlisle insulation is.
Yeah, it's simple math. 3.7, the OCX product. So R21 with 3.7 is 5.5.
The 7 is the 26. These must be 2x8s or something.
Okay. Yeah, they must be 2x8s, or they scabbed a piece on here.
Scabbed a piece on, probably.
But it's plenty deep enough. Now, I'm going to look at a hole of the rafters. I see a real thin spot here. I'm not going to measure there unless that's representative of the whole product. I'm not going to measure right here because that's the thickest area. I want to try to find a nice middle of the road spot and probably measure a couple spots.
3 on the inspection form.
Yeah. Let's do one for this panel. I'm going to do one on the back and one on the other side, but I'm not going to show you all 3. I'm just going to do a couple on this side of the house. I'm going to say right there is pretty representative. Not here, not the thinnest, but right here. Oops. There might be something behind there. Okay, no, there's not. So right there, and you can kind of see it's really close to the black mark on the ruler. The black mark is 6 3/4. So it looks like they tried to get 26 and got 25. So that's 25, this is 26. I wouldn't fail it for that because they would come out and argue about a 1/4 inch. I think you got to give them a 1/4 inch at least. Let's go to the back of the house real quick. I do see that's a real thin spot, that's a real thick spot. I'm just going to pick a middle of the road right here. And I got 6.5. I might probe a little bit more and see what else we're getting here. That's not the thickest spot, but you can see it's over 7. So it's 6.5 on that, 7 on the other. I'll do one more just to feel comfortable. And go right below that thick spot. Okay, that bottoms out. So I think I'm happy that they got R26 here. And you can do that on all 4 walls. There's a place to measure and there's one place to take a picture. Right, Brent? One place to take a picture and 3 places to
measure.
When you're doing an Energy Star final, although we're not going to update that report tomorrow, you'll start seeing on the Energy Star final report, if it's a 3.2, a place to measure from the attic. So it's nice and comfortable in the attic. You're up there getting your measurements, you're checking the ducts. You're going to take your probe with you and get at least one measurement from the mechanical platform. A couple things to note. This is your top plate, attic space above. This actually has to be R25 too, and they aren't usually getting it on this wall. Now you got to be careful. It bottomed out right there at 3 inches. And if I decide to poke really hard, you'll hear it peel away the felt on the other side of the screen. So be careful. You're going to punch all the way through the screen. In fact, I'll do that for you just to demonstrate what not to do. So if you get real aggressive with it, that's where it bottomed out. That's pushing through the screen. So you want to get a measurement, not damage the thing like I just did. Not the end of the world, obviously. So they got 3 inches. That is not 7 inches. This house would fail. So anything above the ceiling sheetrock needs to be R25. This is not above. It can be R21 at the slope. All the rest of the vertical walls that are below the ceiling is 3.5, even if it's a 2x6 wall. I'm not sure we have a 2x6 wall in this house.
Plumbing.
We do. 3.5 is all they need. I'm gonna pause it. We'll go to that 2-story down over there. Sure. Oh yeah. So this is a 2x6 wall. Then we need 3.5. I'm gonna pick a spot that's representative of the whole. This is kind of weak right here. This is kind of thick. This is more medium. I'll put my finger on there and it's getting exactly 3.5. So 3.5 is acceptable on a 2x6 wall. This wall is not acceptable at 3.5. That is in the attic space. That has to be 7 or 6 3/4. So there's a couple reasons this house would fail already. They just don't have the vertical walls in the attic the right depth. They don't have a certificate with the address name, and the certificate they have is not OCX. There's a couple other things we should discuss, and that is the ducts. So
Here's one of the things too that we'll talk through is your wall R value on your certificate is here and your roof R value is here. And then to see whether or not it is a 3.2 home, it will be up here. So it'll tell you that it's compliant with 3.2, 3.1, and 3.0.
that's in the job files.
And that's in the job files, right? Exactly.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about ducts. If you have a duct that is this big around, I'm going to do 2 samples here, one right, one wrong. When a duct comes into this to get pinched here, it's allowed to travel without being called kinked as long as the diameter of the duct is the radius of the bend. Same duct over here, if it comes in and it comes in like this, that's too kinked. So obviously if it has an interior radius that is less than the diameter of the duct, this being the diameter, then it's not okay. This is called kinked. So call this on BMEP, rough, final, energy, rough, and final. If it's too kinked, it's too kinked. That also goes for your fresh air ventilator. All right, I'm going to show you a couple of other things in the house next door about flashing.
Go.
Okay, so I just talked about how some ducts can be kinked too much. I don't know, but I don't think this one meets the requirements. I think it's kinked too much. I can't really see the top, but here's the deal, guys. There's no fix for something like that. So keep in mind, in these floor systems, now if they have an attic space, they have all the room in the world to get it right. In the floor systems, you might reach a point where they're going to have to either move an I-joist or destroy an I-joist. Don't make them destroy an I-joist to get a duct kinked. Make a corrected proceed note. See if this duct can be stretched out without sharp of an angle. But don't fail them for that when they don't have really any options on that are obvious to fix it. Okay, so that's enough about ducts. On a foam house, yes, be the inspector that actually uses his stick and gets to places where they didn't think an inspector would check, okay? That was R13, and that's fine. R13, that's all they need on a horizontal wall. Lastly over here, I'm going to look at a hole of this garage area and pick an average. And I'm going to say my average is right here. I got 4 inches. It needs to be what, 5.5?
5.5.
5.5 inches, and it needs to be R20.
20.
R20, 5.5. So this is 1.5 inches shallow. Now, that's just one spot. Do I need to measure other places? Yeah, I just want to make sure I'm not going to make some busy work for somebody to get 1.5 inches if I only measure the oddball spot. So let me check over here. I got 5.5 here. I got 4.5, 4, 3.5. They didn't do good enough. That's not a 5.5 inch area. And you'll get better where you won't have to do as much stabbing. You'll get a better sense of it. But at first, stab some more and measure some more until you get a good feel for it. More stabbing won't hurt. This is not enough cross section to destroy the R value of the wall in general if you stab it 100 times. All right, guys, over here, we do see a problem where we've talked about it, how they're not using quick flash on there. Now, I can't see anything wrong. Don't call me throw if you can't see it wrong. But over here, I can actually see something wrong. I can see holes down here. I can see holes over here. I don't see tape. I don't see butyl tape on the other side, so I would call that at BMEP and enforce that energy rough. Brent and I are going to go next door. There's actually some more issues that are more obvious, so let's go over there. Guys, so water's going to come down here. It's going to have a problem. Have a problem. It's not taped. I can see the hardy plank backside of the hardy. This is bad right there. So they got to do better. They can use butyl tape. If they're not going to quick flash, they can use foam if it covers it entirely and you can't see any problem. Don't call a problem that you can't see, but I can see problems here. This should be called. All right, guys, I'm sure you'll have some questions like where you get one of these. I'm going to bring one of these to you ASAP. We're going to start going on Monday, so get ready.